Hi, friends. My name's Mia Park, and this is my interview series called In Response Interviews with Intriguing Internalizers. I am in Chicago, Illinois, in the United States. Today is, oh, Kit, what is the date today? It's sometime in October. Oh, it's October 11th. Well, it's different. I am in Chicago, so right now it
Mm,
is in the morning on October 11th. It is 2020. The world seems to be having a lot of unique pressures piled on top of each other. There's a threat of global warming. Here in America, we've got political stuff in the news a lot. There's the constant fight for racial justice. And of course, the human beings on the planet now are handling this COVID-19 pandemic. So it's a pretty interesting time in history. And this interview series is my internal response to those pressures. And today I'm really excited to interview Kit Kelly, who is right now in Australia, but truly a man of the
mm.
world. Hi. Uh,
Hi.
hi. So Kit and I know each other through the practice of Tai Chi. Kit's father is my main Tai Chi teacher. His name is Patrick Kelly. And together they run a studio in Shanghai, China. And that's where Kit and I met years ago when I started going there. Um, but because of the pandemic, Kit is actually in Australia right now. So I'll let you talk about yourself if you'd like more. Kit, is there anything else you'd like to share about yourself?
Not for now, because I think there's plenty of questions and answers. But thank you for having me on the show, and hello to everybody.
It's an honor to have you on. I'm excited. Okay,
Thank
so I
you.
like to open up. I like to open up this interview series by continuing to ask, can you share with us what your outside world looks like? And then can you let us know what your internal response is to that?
Okay, I'll answer that just very literally for the outside world or my outside world. So I'm in
Yeah.
Australia, Sydney at the moment, of course, waiting to be able to travel again so I can, I guess, teach, help my father, take care of the school, and see my loved one. Um, So at the moment, my day is mostly quite relaxed. I wake up in the morning, get coffee, and most importantly, try to keep the training going. So I'm staying with my little brother Isaac, and we try at least once a day to go down to the park for 45 minutes, half an hour, whatever we feel like. And during that time, we try and do the full class that we would usually do um, in the regular school.
That's great. Keeping that
Mm,
training going is important. Wonderful. And it's so nice that you have the community of your brother there
mm,
as well. So I'm glad that
yeah.
you're with family.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so, so you did ask what my internal response to that is. I guess the only thing is I can't travel at the moment, so that um, makes my plans a little bit harder, and in some ways makes the internal training. It's just a bit different for now. I have to fully motivate myself. My response to it internally is to just try not to be too frustrated and just to stay calm and keep training because what's happening around us, getting frustrated at the situation or something like that isn't really going to help. So just have to wait and not react too much for now.
Mm. I think that's a very universal thing that you just shared. I think frustration is
Mm,
something super normal that we're all going through. So it's nice to hear that you yourself are going through it. And I say that because your father is an approachable person, an important person in the world right now, but kind of a big figure because he has been such a long time real uh, Tai Chi and spiritual teacher. And you have spent your life, especially as a young child, uh, working around his lifestyle. You've lived in many different countries, you've traveled a lot. So I have to ask what it was like growing up with the kind of father that you have.
um, yeah, so I can highlight a few points about that. I guess in an outer sense, the very significant thing that probably helped to mold me a little bit was that from about the age of 6 years old, my father began to take me around the world with him as he taught mostly in Europe, but he did visit many other countries throughout Asia, India, America even. I remember he teaching a little bit there. So that was a very interesting experience and an interesting thing to have throughout all those years. We would spend about, it changed over the years, but we would spend about 7 months a year traveling all over Europe. And we wouldn't stay in one place for long. It was sort of, maximum a week in one place, usually a weekend. And that was as my father traveled around in the beginning, trying to make a name for himself, traveled to all the small countries through Europe, trying to get classes going, trying to build a reputation. So that was very interesting, and we met a lot of interesting people and saw interesting things. And I'll just mention that was in contrast to the rest of the year, when usually we would retire in the beginning to New Zealand, and later on, from about 7 years old onwards, we would go back to Australia. And there I would have the normal life. I would go to school and I would have friends and feel like a normal kid, which was something I desperately always wanted at that time. Looking back on it now, I really appreciate that experience I had. And the way I feel now is that I don't want to necessarily just be a normal kid or a normal person. So I'm quite proud of that upbringing. I can also say something that I think was very defining and I always really appreciated about my upbringing was that my father, or Patrick, always treated me and my siblings. He talked to us as if we were intelligent people, treated us like intelligent people, rather than talking to us and treating us like children. So he always explained the reasons why he was asking us to do something, the reason why something couldn't be done. So there was always a good reason. So I didn't just learn I couldn't do this or I couldn't do that, but I learned the reasons behind all these things. And then he left me and my siblings very free to make our own choices, with a lot of freedom, armed with that information. So that's something I really appreciated, and I think it's helped define me a lot. I
Oh,
could go on
cool.
and on, but I'll just leave it at that. I think that's enough.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So, how do you see your father now as an
Um,
adult?
yeah, it's interesting because obviously as a child, a young child, I was surrounded by his students in New Zealand and friends, and I often got told, what a good person he was and um, how good his Tai Chi was. And of course, I believed that as a child, and I still believe those things very strongly. But what formed as a child, of course, is this like maybe a slightly more imaginary image of my father, which I think probably many kids have about their parents. You think or some people dislike their parents, but that the other alternative is people sort of idolize their parents or see their father as like a superhero or something. So there definitely was that. Um, and as I've gotten older over the years, and my knowledge has grown, my understanding has grown, and as I've gotten closer to him, um, I would say as a friend now as well, not just as a son, not just as his child. Um, I think my view of him is more real now, and I still think he's a very good person, and I still think he um, gave his children a lot and gave his family a lot and has given the students a lot, and purely just for the sake of trying to do something good and trying to pass on something that he's learned, the knowledge he's accumulated. So my view of him now, I would say, is less one of like idolizing him or worshiping him. I see him now; he's very human, and he's, of course, he has some faults like every person, and he's not perfect. And there was a time when I was coming into adulthood where I started to see that, and um, I guess I had to readjust my view of what it was to work on yourself internally and what kind of changes that produces. It was an unrealistic expectation of mine that someone who's worked on themselves a long time inside then somehow is less human. They
Mm.
don't make mistakes, they don't show emotion or something, which is a classic image people have of a great master or something. Not that I'm comparing my father to some great masters, but So now I see him as a person, as a very good person, and someone who's walked along the path that I want to follow now, and has formulated the steps, the training steps, in what I find to be a very clear, direct way.
That's great. What a great
Okay.
answer. Cool. So you mentioned that you are now interested in the same system that your father is teaching. And we've talked before that you came to working in this system on your own. I mean, obviously, your father could have been an influence because he's doing what he's doing, but let's talk about you. When did you decide wholeheartedly that you also wanted to practice and share Tai Chi? And also, in there, if you don't mind, I'd also like to ask why you're very specific about not being called a teacher, but rather being called an instructor.
Oh, right. Let's answer that question first. I just feel like for myself, because I'm spending a lot of time in China and at the Nine Clouds Tai Chi and Meditation School, but it's not my school and it's not my system. And it's so in that sense, it's not really my teaching. And I'm compared to a new person who starts at the school, I may seem relatively experienced, but in the grand scheme of things on this internal path, I consider myself still a relative beginner. So to start letting people think of me too much as a teacher or presenting myself that way just seems not true. And you know, maybe one day in 20 years when I've trained a lot longer and for some reason I have my own school, then sure, people can call me a teacher, but I won't let them call me master, or at least I wouldn't ask them to call me master. That's getting into another thing though. Just to refresh my memory, the first question you asked, just
Sure. I
rephrase it
asked,
quickly.
sure, quickly. I asked when you decided to
Or when
also
I
start.
decided, okay. So I have a very clear memory of this from when I was quite young. Actually, a lot of my young childhood memories start at about age 6. I'm not sure why that is. It's such a long time ago. It's hard to know when you remember things from.
Right.
So I have a very clear memory of a time when I sort of decided that it was very important for me to develop myself internally. I keep saying that word, whatever that means, to a point where I had at least achieved the bare minimum of what I considered I may have come here onto the earth to do. And I'm not sure if my father talked to me about this in one long lecture or if he just answered questions as a child as I asked questions, because children are very interested in these things. But the answers I got, which were not pushed on me, but just he gave me his what he believed, the answers I got led me to very strongly feel like this was the truth and this is what I needed to do. And I could go into this a little bit more, but I think I'll just leave it at that. He never, go back to your question, it's true, he didn't push me to train at all. So I sort of decided at that young age, a very young age, I mean, it's surprising in a way that he could explain these sorts of things to me, and that as a child, you can understand it not that differently to how an adult would today. And I don't think that was unique to me as a child. I think that's all children. The brains might not be that developed, but in a way, they're still very intelligent and can understand and take in a lot. So he never pushed me to train. Um, so I didn't train that much for a long time. I knew one day I would. It's true, when I was a child, sometimes I did some meditation, sometimes I played around in the class, but it's very hard to train something like Tai Chi for a child or meditation. So I think my dad was happy letting me just be a kid and choosing when to train. And when I hit about 18 years old, you can say, I said, okay, it's time to start. I'm not getting any younger and might as well start now. And it was still hard when I started. So 18 years old.
That's funny. I'm charmed that you say I'm not, as an 18-year-old, you're reflecting that you're not getting any younger. 18, and you're definitely a man at 18, but the 18 is still pretty young to get started.
Yeah, right.
You're in your mid 30s now, so you've been
That's
practicing
right.
for a long time. So,
Mm.
to many of us, you still are young, and the fact that you started when you were 18 or young is young. So I know that you have an observation as to why young people don't think Tai Chi's cool, or why don't you think young people train in the system?
Well, I can give you what I think could be contributing factors, but obviously I don't know for sure why it's less popular with young people. Um, Probably throughout history, it's never been super popular with young people. Um, but we'll talk about today's age, and I had said to you previously that I get the feeling in today's age it's more associated as something. Tai Chi Chuan is more associated as something that older people do, maybe old people in the park, and that's in Western culture as well. It's quite common to have it in a hospital or something as a sort of healing thing for patients who are coming out, all these sorts of things. So when you put it that way, something for old people to do for their health, and then people think, oh, maybe because it's slow moving and gentle. So then when you take a young person and you suggest Tai Chi to them for their health, actually, they just think, why wouldn't I just go to the gym? Because the gym gives you very superficial, fast external results. You see yourself losing fat, your muscles grow, you get all toned. It's a good feeling. It is a good feeling, and in some ways, it is good for you. Um, Makes you stronger, but it's very different to the long-lasting health that Tai Chi can bring, and the fact that you can continue to train Tai Chi into old age, which is when you need that strong health more than ever. Um,
Hmm.
so I think it's not attractive for that reason. And I also think that if people want to fight, a lot of young guys like the idea of fighting or just defending themselves, being able to defend themselves. So in that case, people look at Tai Chi and they think, well, I might as well do MMA or boxing or something like that. Once again, the results are more external, they're much faster. So I truly believe Tai Chi is very good for the health. And I truly believe that if you train Tai Chi well with a good teacher, that you would develop a very, very good self-defense ability. Doesn't mean you
Mm.
go out and fight people, but a very good, stable base and ability to protect yourself and those around you, not just from attacks from other people, but just from falling down on the ground or slipping over or something, or having an accident where your body, a hard, tight body might hurt itself, and the softer, elastic Tai Chi body may just absorb it. So that just making that clear that I do believe Tai Chi is good for both those things. Of course, its main purpose is the internal development side. And it's true that younger people tend to be less interested in internal development, but not on not to such a huge degree. I think there's still plenty of young people who are interested in that. And I think if Tai Chi could be pushed again a little bit more as something internal, something more like the meditation, even maybe in some ways more like yoga, um, although there's some things I don't like about the modern yoga used for making money in some specific instances. But in another sense, a lot of people still understand that yoga is something you do for the mind as well as the body. And Tai Chi, I think in modern pop culture, it's sort of lost that. People think of it as just for the body, and some people think of it for fighting. So I think that's the thing that needs to be emphasized more than anything is that internal side of it.
Yeah, thanks for that. And you're very clearly talking about this external benefit or existence of things like working out or Tai Chi in the body and internal. So, can you share with us what does internal development look like to you? Like, for
Mm.
example, how can you tell that you're internally developed, or how could you tell if somebody else would be internally developed?
Well, I appreciate the question, and I'll try and give some kind of an answer, but it's the kind of question where you would think you would have to be a certain internal level yourself to then know exactly what changes that produces and to know how to see that in other people. So I don't think I'm at that level in myself to really know exactly what changes that would produce. And I certainly probably can't look at someone else and see how internally developed they are. I can look at someone else and think about their character and see what kind of a person they are, and that can help along reading those signs. But I could just be a really nice person. So it's hard to know. But I've found for myself, and this is something I was thinking about. I've done a lot of reflecting back here in Australia. I have a lot of time to think, and yeah, and something for myself is I feel as the years have gone on, and especially these last years in working with the Nine Clouds School in China, because I feel like that's pushed me a lot. I feel like the way I understand things, the way I understand myself, the things about myself that I understand. For example, if I get angry, if I get a little bit disturbed in some way, I'm able to better reflect on that and try and track down what was really the cause of that. Because there's always a whole chain of reactions for every big emotional response that eventually comes out. And so I feel like the ability to slowly, especially during meditation and things, but also just if you calm the mind, to try and understand what really happened inside, why you really reacted that way. Not just the first reason that comes to mind, but to then look further and what caused that. Um, but also, my understanding of things on the outside has changed. So there's some things where the knowledge hasn't changed. The knowledge hasn't changed about something, but the way I see it is very different. And I think that's a result of possibly some growth inside changes your understanding of something, even though the knowledge around it hasn't really changed. So it's interesting that you can understand things so differently at two different time periods in your life, because everyone probably changes and grows as they get older. And I think everyone's experienced that, looking back at something you thought 20 years ago and thinking you see it almost the complete opposite way now. And it's an unusual thing. I think that's the result of some change inside. But that's just my attempt to describe something and relate it to something that I felt a little bit. So probably other people could give a better description of that. So we can go
Cool.
on.
Okay, we'll go
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
um, do you think in your own personal belief system that every individual has a mission on this planet? Like, I was born to be an actress or a yoga teacher. You were born to instruct Tai Chi. Or do you think that these discoveries and these paths we take in the external world are a result of like coincidences or, external influences?
Hmm. Um, well, firstly, I don't think I was born to be a Tai Chi teacher. I don't think I was born to be a Tai Chi teacher. That's for sure. I think that it's it's the common answer I would give to this type of question, and that is probably a little bit of both.
Mm,
I've always, my whole life, I've always thought that when it comes to these sorts of things, predestiny or fate, I've always thought that there's an element of truth in it. But I've also thought, could the intelligence behind the Earth and the solar system, the universe, or whatever, or the intelligent beings, could every tiny little piece of our lives really be orchestrated? And I think that's highly unlikely. So I think that a lot of our life is random, and that's part of the randomness of life and the ability to have free choice to choose and to navigate the randomness of life. But I definitely think that in a sense there is the possibility of fate or destiny or things that a mission that you have. And once again, I think in those cases you're still given a choice. So if you have a particular quest or a set of tasks you need to do in this life, the opportunity to do those things will probably arise, but it's still up to you whether you take them or not, because that's it. Ultimately, being here in a body in this life, free will is like one of the most powerful things that we have.
hmm. That's really interesting. Can you say more about the intelligent beings and the intelligence that's out there beyond us? What's your what's your understanding of that?
Well, there's probably other people that can tell you more, because most of what I know is stories from my father or things from books from good teachers that have been recommended by my father. So, no, I probably can't really share much more. The only thing I can share is that I think that when you're talking about anything beyond the body, when you talk about any kind of intelligence beyond us, when you talk about maybe the earth or the sun being great beings, I think it's important, or I try and remember that in talking about this, we're just really attaching words to these things to try and give them some concept within our brain. But I really truly believe that these things are incomprehensible, and that the brain just cannot even comprehend um, what is really beyond the body. So we do our best to try and put it into words and form some understanding, and that does help. And that's how we can try and train something and find something real in that. But I just think that is important to mention in everything that's said.
Hmm. Yeah, it's nice to kind of put context to our belief systems.
Mm.
Um, so, do you knowing a little more about how you see this internal and external existence and the importance of the internal existence, but that we are in this, we live in this world right now on this rock.
Mm.
Um, do emotional words or like adjectives, personal adjectives matter to you about the future? Like if I would say like, are you hopeful about the future, or what are your feelings about being alive right now? Like, first of all, do you care about that way of thinking? And second of all, if you do, how do you feel?
I honestly don't fully understand the questions.
Okay.
So do you mean using those sorts of words, those sorts of nice words? Do I like that? Or do you mean, do I like particular words? Or did I completely misunderstand?
No, you did great. Sorry if I was confusing. The
Mm.
first. Okay, let me just ask you straight. How do you feel about the future emotionally?
My future or the future of humanity?
You pick.
Oh, that's an open-ended question. Hmm. Well, I don't really have enough like knowledge about the world and the internal worlds and what's going on to really speak about um, what might be happening there. So I guess for myself, I feel optimistic, and I feel quite happy in my life at the moment. That being said, there's a lot of things in myself I feel I need to work on. Um, but no, I'm happy. Ever since I really dedicated myself to training Tai Chi every day and training closely with my father and some of his senior students, I felt very content in my life. There's been hard times, of course, through that building that school and living in new countries. But I think my father spoke about it in his interview with you, that um, when you're doing the work on yourself in some way, there's a type of internal sort of contentment that comes from that. Because if I just sit around and I do nothing in my life, it's easy, but nobody feels content doing that. So people go out and they do things, and they start businesses, or they go out and they help people, or they do something, they have hobbies, because that gives some kind of fulfillment. And if people can do something that's not just for money, but that really helps people in their life, then people will get more contentment from that. They'll feel very good doing what they're doing, like they're doing something that's important. Um, and so for me, if I can do something that I feel like is working towards the reason I came into a body, then that's the best thing I can do, and I'm very happy with that.
Are you getting closer to finding out why you're in a body?
I don't think so, really, honestly, because I think it's very difficult to train these things, and it takes a very long time. A consistent, strong effort needs to be made for a long time. Um, so I feel like my Tai Chi is making good progress. Um, Not that I'm perfectly content with that either. It needs to be improved a lot, but it's making good progress because I'm putting in hard work. I'm training a lot. So in a sense, learning Tai Chi is really much easier than fully working on yourself to the point that that I want to anyway. So Tai Chi is really something easier. It's something more measurable. It's something more external and less abstract. And it's also the beginning and the pathway in for a really good foundation into the internal path. So that's why I choose Tai Chi. And yeah, okay.
I love
Let's
that
go on.
answer, Kit. Okay, we'll go on. I love that answer. You just said some really important things that, yeah, that was great. I heard you, what I understand you're saying is that there's these like big concepts that can be abstract, but rather than kind of putting that pressure on yourself of like, why am I in this body? And how am I, what's going on? Just keep this practice of Tai Chi that is so accessible to us, that is measurable, as you said, our improvement or the amount that we practice and the way
Yeah.
that we practice is all very measurable and much less abstract. And
Yeah.
that all of those lead you towards a deeper internal path. That's
Yeah.
great. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting just talking about that. I hope I don't misquote this. I don't remember who said it, but my dad sometimes says it. And that's that Tai Chi is really the physical manifestation of the Taoist teaching. Because once again, the Tao can be quite abstract. And it's a teaching I respect greatly, but it can be quite abstract. And Tai Chi is that same teaching, but the physical manifestation of it. It's something I like hearing though.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree. It's like this embodiment, if you will, of the very abstract ideas. I know trying to read the ancient spiritual texts, and it depends on the translator because it was written in an old
Right.
Chinese, and if you don't even speak
Mm.
Chinese, it's. I think all of that we're talking about is part of this great, wonderful, mysterious opportunity we're given.
That's right.
And is this, and again, I want to thank you for this great mysterious opportunity I've been given to interview you.
No, thank you.
Oh, cool. Is there anything else that you wanna comment on or share with us?
No, I don't think so. But if you have a last question, you're welcome to answer. Welcome to ask it.
Okay, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Hmm. It's hard to put a timeline on progress, but in 10 years, I think I still see myself spending a lot of time teaching at Patrick's Nine Clouds school. I'm going to call it our Nine Clouds school. It's his school, but we're a family, so I can call it our Nine Clouds school. I see myself still putting my energy into there. It's possible I wouldn't teach as much, but I still see myself being a big part of that. In another 20 years, who knows what I would be doing?
Okay, so in October of 2030, we'll do another interview and we'll check in and see how the last 10 years was, which will be 10 years from now. Can we do
Okay,
that?
sure, sure.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kit Kelly. Thanks for
Thank you.
watching. Yeah, you're welcome. So thanks for watching, everyone. Again, my name's Mia Park, and this interview series is called In Response, Interviews with Intriguing Internalizers. This is broadcast live through video stream on my Facebook page and my YouTube channel, and this will also soon be a podcast. And if you're enjoying this interview series and want to support me and my team to continue them, you can become a patron of the series by joining at patreon.com/Mia Park. And that is, you can do that for $1 a month if you want. So there's more information on my website, miapark.com. Thank you so much, Kit Kelly.
Okay.
Okay, take care. Bye, everyone.